The neighboring counties went back to school today, and my county starts school tomorrow. But you can already feel back to school in the air. It's like a literal atmosphere change. At this stage of my life, one of the first things I thought about was traffic. I remember a time, in my Michael Jackson voice, when back to school season meant preparing to increase the rat race. And realize I said preparing to increase it and not re-enter it, because work never stopped during the summer. I was still getting up and going to work, but once the school started, the buses came back, the school zones came back, parents started taking different routes because they had to make a stop at school or daycare first. And even if you don't have children, and even if your route doesn't pass specifically by school, you can usually tell when school is back in session because everybody's movement changes. And I was thinking about that this morning when I was out for my morning walk. And another thought occurred to me, and that is my sons aren't newly grown, but they are grown. I mean, like in their mid to late 20s. And I can look at back to school season now and think, whoo, I don't have to do that anymore. No school shopping, no supply list, no checking the calendar to see what child starts at what time, no working out who needs to be where before I can get to where I need to go. And don't get me wrong, I don't say that because I hated that season of life. I actually loved a lot of it. I mean, there was a period when we lived close enough to the schools that I could walk my sons there and go back and walk back to get them. And I went on field trips with them. I went to the zoo. I took time away from work to attend school events. I was involved in the PTA and served on the School Advisory Council, also known as SAC. Additionally, of course, like any other parent, I helped with homework and science projects. I remember making the lemon battery that powered a light bulb. And I was learning right alongside with them, because who thought that you could get electricity from a fruit? So there were genuinely good parts of that season. You know, I enjoyed watching them learn. I enjoyed being involved in their education. And I enjoyed seeing them discover who they were becoming. I mean, it was a good season, but it was also an exhausting one. And two things can be and often are true at the same time. You know, because school starting was never just a matter of sending the children back to class. It really means rearranging the whole household routine. You know, there's the transportation, the homework, different start times for elementary, middle, and high school, work schedules that did not conveniently line up with those school schedules. So there was before school care, after school care, and before they were old enough for school, there was full-time, daycare. Then, there were school calendars, events, projects, the clothes, supplies, all those forms you had to fill out, and all the little things that appeared, throughout the year. Something always needed to be signed, purchased, returned, washed, packed, or remembered. And if you're still in that season, I remember, I'm right there with you. And I don't mean that in a poor you kind of way, like, y'all don't have to do that anymore, I feel so sorry for you. That's not what I mean. I mean that I understand how much is required of you. And, you love your children, you value their education, but you can still feel like you're running a small transportation and logistics department before you even arrive at your actual job, right? School shopping also had its own memories, right? I remember back in my day at Sears, they used to have something called Kid Vantage. If the clothes wore out before the child outgrew them, you could have them replaced, specifically the jeans. I think it was just for the jeans. And that was a useful promise, especially if you're buying clothes for children who are hard on clothes, right? Later on in their season, we moved on to JCPenney and other stores, but it didn't seem to matter how I prepared. I thought I was prepared. I would buy clothes sometime during the summer, and by August discover that somebody had apparently grown several inches overnight, right? That's what it seems like. For my son's school clothes were not mainly about keeping up with fashion. They needed clothes because they were actually growing. And both of them eventually grew to be well over 6 feet tall to this day. So apparently I was feeding trees and not boys. And then this year, while I was having all those memories when I was doing my morning walk, I started thinking about how recently my social media feed started showing me the annual school supply wars that's become a thing over the last few years. All those arguments out there. Why am I buying supplies for somebody else's child? Or why does everything have to go into a community bin? Why does the teacher need all these tissues, pencils, markers, and folders? Why can't the school provide them? Why are the teachers buying classroom supplies themselves? And what exactly are parents supposed to cover? All the things. Every August, or at least within recent years, the debate seems to come back right along with the school buses. And it reminded me that when my sons first started school, during that time, their supplies were their supplies. And I did, and actually the teachers advised to write their names on everything. And I took it to the extreme, child. I wrote it on everything. I labeled individual crayons to make sure they came home with a full box. Okay, not just the box. I wrote their name on the actual crayon. I was committed. Y'all don't understand. And then I did notice that system slowly began changing. The instructions started saying not to label certain supplies because they were going into a shared inventory. And at my son's school, the teachers were transparent about the changes. I understood where their supplies were going, and I wasn't particularly offended by sharing. Kids lose pencils, crayons break, someone forgets a folder. The classroom still has a function, so I didn't see it as a big deal. But I did occasionally look at the list and wonder if these things are inexpensive, like why am I buying so many extras? Again, my children are in their mid to late 20s now, so prices have soared, but just being out and about in the big box stores, it seemed pretty cheap to me. But at the same time, having children has taught me to create my own system, right? When the basic supplies were on sale, I bought more than they needed. Whatever didn't get used that year became part of next year's supplies. And that worked so well that when my youngest son graduated, I still had one of those large storage totes filled with school supplies that I gave away and distributed to people that I knew that still had kids in school. But that bin survived an entire school-age parenting era, right? So the supply conversation has gotten complicated. And social media likes to, have sides. You're either a team teacher, team parent. There's no middle ground. But the real world and households don't function in that absolute Sith mindset. My Star Wars fans get that. So during some of those years when my sons were in school, my financial position was probably similar to a lot of families today. I made too much to qualify for any type of assistance, but not enough money to feel abundant. So I can believe that parents should expect some expenses connected to raising and educating their children without pretending every household has the exact same capacity. I can also believe that schools should be properly funded. Teachers should not routinely have to finance their classrooms out of their own paychecks. And parents should not be expected to fill every structural funding gap indefinitely either. All those things can be true at the same time, as I said earlier. Schools need adequate resources. Teachers should not have to personally bankroll their classrooms. And parents still have some responsibility for expenses connected to their own children. Now, I'm not going to settle this national school supply debate from the comfort of my home today. This is not what At Home at Lula is about. This is not a school board hearing. But I do remember how a request that seems small to one person can land very differently on another household. I remember when one of my sons, my youngest specifically, was in VPK or voluntary pre-K. There seemed to be a steady stream of classroom celebrations, and not just your regular holiday parties, but there were all kinds of events, and everybody had a birthday like every month, so something was always being celebrated. And I began noticing that I repeatedly seemed to receive one of the larger assignments. Like they would have a list of things. They would be transparent and show you the list of things that they needed for whatever it was. And I noticed that my name will always be by the biggest the biggest ticket item, whether it was a cake, the cupcakes, if it was a Halloween party, the candy, whatever it was. So eventually, I pulled the teacher aside. I was like, why do I keep getting assigned these items? And she essentially told me because I was the only parent in the class with a job. And that answer stayed with me for a number of reasons. Because yes, I had a job, but having a paycheck did not mean there was an unlimited amount of money attached to it. I still qualified for the program, So I was working, I was raising my children, I was paying bills, managing childcare costs, which are minimum to none because my youngest was in the VPK at that point, and my eldest, because it's a 5-year span between them, was well into school. But employment is just only part of the picture. Yes, I had a job, but you can't see my whole financial picture. You don't see my obligations. And that happens far beyond school. Someone knows you work or knows what type of job you have and decides what you should be able to afford without knowing what your paycheck actually has to cover. School itself sat inside that same complicated financial picture and has been for a long time. Education mattered deeply to me. That's why once my sons were grown, I went back to school and advanced my knowledge and degree. I'm a person that read to my sons before they could talk. I taught them letters and early skills, and I just supported their academics throughout school. And later, because of that, they had advanced coursework, at that time known as AP or college prep classes. One was in the National Honor Society, and the other received presidential academic recognition. So I don't say this as a brag moment, but I say it because school was never simply a place to send them during the day. I took their education seriously and reinforced it at home. But another thing can be true at the same time is that school also made working possible. Before children reach school age, full-time childcare can be a weekly hefty expense. Once my sons entered school, even when I still had to pay for before or after care, sometimes both, that was a substantial relief. It was literally 1/4 of what the daycare was for the month, and sometimes less. So while school does exist to educate children, the school calendar also structures the working lives of parents and really the movement of communities as a whole. And that is why the first day of school registers even when your own children aren't walking through those doors anymore. But now none of it's mine to manage, just, something for me to ponder on independently. There's no school shopping for me, no supply lists, no daycare, no before care or after care, no checking backpacks, no adjusting my morning around drop off, and no science project appearing suspiciously close to the date. If all the parents out there know about it. So no one announces at 8:30 at night that, they need a poster board. That has happened to me several times. Or my son's school years, they didn't end yesterday, but this is not a brand new stage of life, right? Something about an ordinary August morning just made that chapter visible again. I think even because it's still hot during the day, it's something about when back to school comes, the mornings always still feel like fall. So I think that brought back those memories. And there was a time when back to school season controlled my schedule, my budget, my shopping, my mornings, and a large part of my mental space. Now, as of tomorrow, my county, the buses return, the traffic's going to change, the supply debates will keep going as you get that second updated list from the teacher. And I'll notice all those things, but this time, or as I've been doing for a number of years now, from the other side of things. Sometimes you don't realize how fully you have moved into another stage of life until something that used to consume your attention comes around again. And you realize it doesn't require anything from you anymore. It was a good season. It was an exhausting season. And I made it through that season. Now, I want to know where you are in it. If you're still in the school age hustle, how is back to school season treating you? If your children are grown, does the first day of school still register with you, or do you barely notice it anymore? At least until you get on the road in the morning. And on the school supply debate, are you team individual supplies? Are you about writing that name on those crayons still? Are you team community bin, or are you somewhere in the middle? Most importantly, were you ever the parent who somehow kept getting assigned those cupcakes or the cake, or just the most expensive item on the classroom party list? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy these comfortable conversations about home, life, and the things that ordinary day can bring back to us, subscribe to Lula at Home. This was simply one of those mornings with one small observation open a whole drawer full of memories.